This is a Founding Media podcast, produced at Austin Community College District. Welcome back to Science in the Mall, y'all, with me, Dan Dillard, and my co-host and ABI Director, Nancy Lyon. This is a fun episode because we're joined by two more former ABI interns who worked at the incubator together at the same time. Mike Delisi and Amanda Brown share how their unique journeys through life led them to ACC and how they found the internship opportunity at the ACC Bioscience Incubator. They also share how changes in life help us find and follow our passions and explain how their experiences at ABI gave them an edge over other applicants in the job market once they graduated, even while they held an associate's degree and a sea of applicants with bachelor's degrees. They talk about the importance of learning how to troubleshoot, think critically, and get comfortable with failure, and even give us some tips about how to secure a job interview when you're applying right out of school. Let's dive in. Hi, welcome to the show. You guys doing okay this morning?
I'm a little under the weather, but all in all, doing just fine.
Technically, we're not morning anymore, Dan.
Well,
That's true.
Oh, man.
It feels like it. I can see why you thought that.
Well, it's another sunny day in Florida.
It's even less morning for you, Amanda.
Yes.
So I'm excited to talk about today's show. A lot of things that you guys have been doing over the last few years really is intriguing, and I want to get into it. So I want to just throw a question out there. When were you guys interns at ABI?
I started before ABI even opened. Time is a flat circle, so I do not remember when. So it would have been early January, maybe even December for the previous year. Sometime.
We're on the semester schedule, so it wasn't fall.
Oh, I have no idea.
I don't know.
I think I started in June of 2017.
Did you guys work together at any point?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the summer of 2017 into the fall, Mike and I did work together.
Nice. I want to hear about that experience. Can you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
It was really smooth and easy. I remember just anytime that Amanda and I needed to collaborate on something, it just happened to work out well. And if we were working independently, we got things done. It was just like she was definitely one of my favorite interns that I worked with there.
I know there were several times. So we had like different projects, and I had work with one of the companies, and he was always there if I ever had any like instrument questions. And so I really liked going to him for questions and, Mike, please help me because I don't know what to do. Where do I find this information? So he was.
And what I didn't tell her at the time is I didn't know what to do either, but I figured it out.
Let's Google.
He's a good faker.
Yeah.
It is true that they were two different positions. Like most of the students we hired were really to take care of the equipment and stuff. And Amanda had a unique one where we had a company that had a supplemental fund in their grant to fund a project. And so it paid us to help them do research. And so we hired Amanda as an actual researcher for this company. But it happened to coincide, obviously, with the other students that were there working on the kinds of things Mike was working on.
Really cool. I want to back up a little bit and talk a little bit more about the path to getting to ACC. You guys want to share a little bit about how you got to ACC and what led you to ABI?
I know that the semester before my internship, they always led you in the direction of filling out resumes and applying for internships. And because the program is extremely close to the incubator being under the same community college in Austin, it was something that they pushed for applying. And so several people applied and we interviewed, and that's how I got in.
I got into ACC because I was originally going to finish a degree in linguistics that I had started about a decade prior. And it kind of never ended up being a thing. And I switched majors. I changed horses midstream and got into biotech instead because it seemed like a better option.
Wow, that's interesting. Let me know. I mean, how did that journey change from linguistics to science? That seems like a pretty big jump.
So when I was in high school, I did Running Start, which is a program in Washington State where they let you take college courses instead of going to junior and senior year of high school. And so I did that, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to take the opportunity, and I took a bunch of classes for languages and things like that. And by the time I graduated high school, I was most of the way to finishing a degree in linguistics. But I never completed it and went into the workforce and did a bunch of odd stuff, and eventually got really dissatisfied with what I was doing for a living and went back to school and just wanted to complete the degree I had, but I didn't really have any kind of actual plan for it. And
Typical.
Then yeah.
For everybody, not you.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
And then during I had to take a science course. I think it was called Science of Life. During that course, a representative from the biotech department came in and did like a presentation and showed us stuff, and all of the things that I really enjoyed about the science course were all of the things that she was talking about in biotech. So I was like, biotech it is.
So there was a big gap there in terms of, like, you're saying that you did this in Washington and all of a sudden you're at ACC.
Yes. I moved to Texas in 2006 and worked a random series of jobs for about 6 or 7 years. And then I went to ACC.
Gotcha. Witness protection program had you not wanting to talk about that. I apologize.
Yeah, I've led a very storied life.
What about you, Amanda? What was your journey like?
So I had different careers in my 20s, and it just wasn't as fulfilling. And so in my 30s, I decided that I would go back to school, and I've always liked science. And so it just intrigued me. And when meeting with the counselors at ACC, they were talking about these programs that they had, and that biotech was really hands-on, and that is where I wanted to be. So I started the program and worked my way through it. It's less fun as Mike's. I was searching for it.
I don't know. You didn't tell us about all the previous careers, so I'm not sure that that's actually true.
Yeah, you just glossed over that.
I did. I mean,
was it a big change in mindset though? Like, I mean, it's from one direction to the other.
Yeah. So I had a lot of family situations that happened over the years that kind of kept me out of education, and so, like, I have so much experience in different fields of work. Like, I've worked at restaurants, of course, a lot of, college kids have. I've worked at a credit union. I've worked at Lowe's. I've managed fireworks stands. I've managed a Christmas tree farm. And so survival was a really big chunk of my life. For about 10 years, I would say, just life situations. I did what I had to do to survive. And coming out of that, I was a really broken person and looking for something that I could provide for my family, because I decided when my daughter was born that I was going to choose the best life possible for us. And my family's really stood behind me. Without them, I would not have ever been able to finish school. And so they really pushed me, and I went, found the program that really fit my passion and what I really wanted to do. And even at the end, I remember the semester, right before my last semester, I was talking to my family, and I just told them I can't do this anymore. I'm worn out. I have this 1-year-old child, and I can't do it anymore. I'm worn out. And they said, no, I don't care what you have to do, but you're going to finish this. And I mean, obviously, I'm really grateful for that, because look where I am now.
Right, family motivation. That's awesome. I think that is. Thank you for sharing that, both of you. I think that's really important, because everybody starts somewhere, and we don't know where we're going, and we have to make changes and shifts throughout our lives. So, and everybody's experience is different. But yeah, at some point, the passion gets a hold of you, and you figure out, this is what I want to do. So that's really cool. So how about the ABI experience, how did that prepare you for the workplace?
In my case, I think the most important thing I took away from my time at ABI was the confidence to just kind of throw myself at something I wasn't necessarily prepared for.
Highly encouraged.
Got a lot of bruises doing
that. Did, yes. ABI was really great because it was a safe place to potentially mess up things, that you didn't know how to do necessarily. Like we would do, maintenance on machines that cost as much as I made in a year. And, I'd have no idea what I'm doing with this thing, but.
And it was so encouraged. The supervisors there and just everyone that you worked with, it's like, it's okay to try, and if you have a thought about something and you have an idea, let's explore it. Don't be afraid to explore and look up things and, let's start a new project. You think this is going to work? Let's do it. And so that kind of mindset was highly encouraged, and it allows you to kind of think freely.
That's really cool because most of how the world works that way. We don't necessarily, as we forge towards the future, we don't necessarily know the path. We just got to go out there and get it done. And sometimes I think school, like in high school and just going through the system, it prepares us to get graded and somebody has to tell if it's been done right or wrong. But in life, it's not like that. Life, it's like you don't know which decision is going to lead to a better path or not. So trying to change or making sure you are open to change and open to trying things is super important. So I keep hearing that same comment out of ABI, which is just allowing people to explore, which is very cool.
It's also something that you don't teach in classes, right? You take a lab class and you go through this thing and then you run out of time or it didn't work and they go, okay, well, this is what it would have looked like. Okay, let's go to the next one, And it's like in a real life workplace, especially like a research lab, if it doesn't work, you don't, what you were doing was making the thing you need for the next thing. So like, if it didn't work, you can't move on. You have to go back and do it again and figure out what went wrong.
Exactly.
And that's the reality of it that they don't teach in classes. And it's really hard often to convince people of. They're like, oh, but you told me to do this and it didn't work. It's like, yeah, do it again. Maybe you just forgot to put one of the things in.
It's really hard to figure out and to learn how to troubleshoot things if you only get to try it once. It's really important to be able to try it until you find some kind of answer, because that teaches you, okay, well, I thought this way would work, but it didn't. So I was able to then, go find some answers and try this and it worked. And this is why it worked. And so it teaches critical thinking and the ability to troubleshoot, whereas in a classroom, you can't really gain that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way, Nancy. How you were putting into I'm thinking back to like testing. When you go study for a certain amount of period, then you have a test, and the test has A, B, and C and D answers, and you get one right or wrong, and then you move on. You don't have to sit there and test and retest until you get it right. And that's part of the process that we actually have to do in life, is kind of keep testing until we get it right versus knowing what the answer is. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Do you feel it reflected in your lives? Like, do you feel like you guys know how to live a better life because of this skill?
Being at the bioscience incubator changed my life.
It should be transferable, true, though.
What about the ACTA machine? I want to learn more about that.
Oh, the ACTA.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, so my first experience with the ACTA was at the bioscience incubator, the ACTA Pure, which is a 25 liter a minute, or 25 mil a minute, or something like that. It's an ACTA 25.
Will you describe what it is for the audience?
Absolutely. It's a little box about the size of like an old CRT computer monitor or something, and it's a pump essentially that has a whole array of a lot of very sophisticated sensors built into it. And so you pump things through it, and it'll tell you, what the pH is, what the conductivity is, what the UV is on it. And it tells you a whole bunch of scientific data about what you're pumping through it. And it allows you to perform, it's an FPLC, so fast protein liquid chromatography. And it's a really handy dandy little machine, and it runs off of a software called Unicorn, which is really great.
Or not.
But it looks very complicated and intimidating, and it was probably the machine that I had to teach other people how to use the most at ABI, and that meant I had to learn how to use it as well, because it's a very useful machine.
Did it work? Could you go in there and play with it now if you had to, Amanda?
Oh my. I could play with it, yes.
So that was my first experience with the ACTA at the incubator there.
So the one we have is for researchers, right? It's kind of the scale that a researcher would use.
It's the benchtop scale.
Right, exactly.
And I use what is called an ACTA process at work now, and it goes up to 2,000 liters an hour, and it's enormous. It's the size of a car, and it's you get this inch wide diameter tubing and plug it into the side of it to flush buffers through at frightening speeds, and it sounds like a train driving by, and it's really intimidating and impressive, and it's great, and it's basically the exact same machine. It's just scaled up. And so,
I think ours are 4 millimeter tubing.
Right, they're like peak tubing, itty bitty. But the skills that I learned messing around with the ACTA and teaching other people to use it as best as I could at ABI was one of the most important things for me getting my job that I have now, working for X Biotech.
So what you use this thing for, and Mike can go into the details, but basically, what they do in this, how do you make insulin, right? People buy insulin to, for their diabetic situation. How do you do that? You can make like bacteria. You could stick the gene for insulin in bacteria, and every time it replicates, it makes a copy of it. And so bacteria replicate every 20 minutes and at like huge numbers of them. And so you can get tons and tons and tons and tons of insulin made, but then you still have to get it away from the rest of the bacteria, right? You have to lyse the bacteria and get rid of they make their own proteins too, and their own DNA, and so there are ways to get it out of there because you don't want all the other junk. And so this pump that he's talking about basically will, you run it through these different chromatography columns. So you can say, okay, sort out all the things bigger than this size. Okay, we know our protein is negatively charged, so let's get rid of all of the positively charged things. Okay, we need it. We also know it's this. And you can have all these different types of purification steps to get down to your final thing, all with nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So customizable filter.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great summation of it.
Absolutely.
I had really cool, I don't know what you would call it, like a story that I'm a very visual person. And so I'm like, how would I explain something like this to somebody that has no idea like what science means? And so I thought of a vegetable beef soup that has hamburger meat, peas, carrots, green beans in it. It has maybe some tomato sauce, chicken broth, salt and pepper, and some seasonings. And so I imagined like a assembly line of people with different tools, and like you would think of each person as its own little chromatography column, and one person has tweezers where they're picking out only the carrots. And so it's like an affinity to where it only likes to pick out the carrots. And then the next person is a column that, like, let's say the peas were positively charged and everything else was negatively charged. And so the next person has a magnet and only pulls out the negatively charged stuff. So you're left with carrots and the broth. And so the next person has a filter where it filters out tomato sauce. And so you end up with, and then you can like even go through a size exclusion to where they have like a colander that only certain items of size can fit through. Maybe that size is for the peas. And so anything that is bigger than a pea would stay. And so at the end, you end up with your peas, your chicken broth, and salt. And that would be like your drug of product would be the peas, and it's going to cure your disease. And so I just had a funny.
And
That's a
the
great
chicken broth
one. I
and the
love it.
salt can go along with it. It's not harmful. It's just a delivery method.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful illustration. I was thinking about it as you were talking about
And
that.
now
That makes a lot
everyone's
of
hungry.
sense.
No, it is an excellent analogy. I'm pretty sure peas are negatively charged, though.
Yeah. Anybody who's been in manufacturing would know that.
Oh.
But so, translating that to what Mike's doing now.
Out in the world, we need just a little bit of leverage, and if it's that one thing, and it turns out that's why I was so curious about the ACTA machine, because it seems like that's been that leverage for some people. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, there's a bunch of companies out there, and everybody knows how to use a pipette and things like that, but there's a lot of them that need people who know how to use a very specific device, and if you can learn how to do it, it's your foot in the door. And the ACTA seems to be one of them around here anyway.
And I think that's key is, every city and every wherever has their own industries. And so, the biotech program has actually been very strategic in going to the companies in town. Like they take tours and take the students over, but they are also like looking to see what instruments they're using. And they buy those instruments and teach them in the class so that the students can walk in there and go, I know how to run that.
And I absolutely toured X Biotech through ACC before I started working there as well.
The edge that Mike has is more than just a button pusher. A lot of people can be hired into manufacturing to, program per the SOP and push buttons, but Mike has that edge of, okay, but if I push this button and something doesn't work the way it's supposed to, he can provide input, and I know companies love that.
Both of you've got an associate's degree, correct?
Correct.
Can you discuss how the associate's degree combined with the hands-on experience was actually helping you to get the jobs that you currently have?
Yeah, the associate's program at ACC for biotech it's an excellent program, honestly, or at least it was when I took it. I can't speak for now, but
Probably okay.
But it's an excellent program. It's really comprehensive. All of the teachers there, they're passionate about what they do. They work in the industry. They know their stuff, and they're good at teaching it. And between that and all of the ability to apply the things that I was learning in a real world, somewhat real world situation. The bioscience incubator is a little surreal, but that combined just kind of it you can learn something in a class, and then 2 or 3 years later you get the opportunity to actually utilize it, and it's a distant memory, but the fact that I was able to kind of cement it in place by actually doing it really, it gives you a leg up.
Yeah, I know like the diversity of what you learn during the biotech program at ACC is astounding. You get your hands into a little bit of everything, whether it's cell culture, HPLC work, growing bacteria, and a little bit of troubleshooting. And so you have a wide range of skills that you're gaining through the program, where I know I've worked alongside folks that had gone through just like a bachelor's or master's in whatever field, and they may know like microbiology really well, but they have no experience whatsoever in cell culture. Or maybe they did cell culture and they have no idea how to grow bacteria. And so I know, even though it's an associate's degree, that we gained a very wide range of skills.
There seems to be this connotation against just having an only associate's degree, but then you combine that with a hands-on experience at ABI, and that just seems to take things to a whole new level. So I was wondering if you were able, like when you're out in the job market, what your experiences were only going out with going out with both of those, with not only the associate's degree, but also the hands-on experience at ABI, and if that had any helped you, or what your experience is.
So
there.
I know with mine, the ability to have conversations, obviously during interviews, because that's where they get to make their decisions from, the ability to have some knowledge in all of the areas, and then having hands-on saying, when we did this experiment, then we had to do this. And I know a lot of the people that I've interviewed with were very impressed with not only the knowledge that we had, but how we addressed each experiment. And a lot of the positions that I've had in previous employers and even in my current one, I don't have basic, like, the minimum requirement. But it's that extra experience that they're like, well, no, she may not have the minimum requirement to have this position, but her experience and her history and how she applies her thinking, they call it equivalent. And so that's what gets me in the door.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my experience as well. Like the actual degree, the actual degree isn't really all that big a deal. It's the what came with it, all of the experience and the confidence to throw yourself into something new, and the wide variety of things that you can speak knowledgeably about because of your experience. Like, just the fact that you have a degree of some kind isn't necessarily going to impress anybody. But if you can sit there and talk to them about all these things that you've done and all these things that about, and they realize, oh, this person has a lot of the things that we want, that's kind of the more important thing.
So, but a lot of HR departments will read that out. They wouldn't even get you a chance to have that conversation, and like they just look, and if it doesn't have the BS or the master's or whatever the heck they say, you don't get the interview. And so, that's, I think, a lot of speaking for the biotech program. I think Lene has done a really good job of like breaking down the wall and putting enough interns into these companies that they're like, oh, okay, well, we can consider that. And especially if it comes directly from one of us, right? Like, hey, trust me on this one. But yeah, that's going to be the trick, right? How do you get people to see that? Like the new companies coming to town.
Yeah.
How do we get them to give you guys an interview?
So I know when I applied at Fujifilm Diosynth in Texas, you always have this option to upload a cover letter. And I uploaded some recommendation letters from ACC professors, and I think that also helped too. And so that's one thing with the program there. When I was there, the ratio was small, and so you got to know everyone on a very intimate level and build some really positive relationships. And I think that also helps carry you through.
Thanks for joining us, Mike and Amanda. It's always inspiring to hear how challenges and pivots in life ultimately lead us back to our passions. And it's insightful to learn about all the ways that an internship at a place like ABI can make all the difference in a real-world professional environments. Mike and Amanda started to give us a glimpse into what they're doing now since graduation, but you'll have to tune in to part 2 to get that whole story. Check out part 2 of this conversation in the next episode. Until then, this is a Founding Media production made in partnership with Austin Community College's Bioscience Incubator, which is the region's only wet lab space for Austin's growing bioscience industry.